When UCF visits West Virginia on Saturday, which team truly has the advantage at quarterback?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. It's Tuesday, and today we are talking about quarterback, as we are so many times, but we're going to compare the two quarterbacks. And if you guys have been following us for any length of time, we haven't been around that long, but we've been around long enough for you to know we like to dive into the numbers here on Locked On UCF. So we're talking about Dylan Rizk versus Garrett Green. Which quarterback truly gives his team an advantage on Saturday? And we're talking about passing depth. How efficient are these quarterbacks at passing the ball in certain zones? Fortunately for us, our friends at Pro Football Focus keep those numbers, and I've got some graphics prepared for you guys today to talk about each quarterback and how they're doing in each zone. As always, this segment of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. If you want to get tickets to a game, Game Time has you covered. We're going to get into that later, but for now, if you want to know what time it is, it's game time. Let's get into it, guys. I'm going to pull up Dylan Rizk's numbers first, his passing depth numbers. Again, these are numbers provided to us by Pro Football Focus. So let's get into it. Here's Dylan Rizk by the numbers so far this season. Now, again, he's got a smaller sample size than most quarterbacks, but I want to start here looking at Dylan Rizk in the 20-plus zone. These are your big plays here. So far this season, he's 5 of 7 outside right for 152 yards, beyond 20 yards down the field. Middle of the field, 1 for 1 for 48 yards. I think we all know that's the Hail Mary that he threw at the end of the half there earlier this season. 0 for 2 outside left. Here's where I think the numbers get interesting. From 0 to 19 yards, he's 2 of 3 for 38 outside left, 5 of 7 for 93 yards middle of the field, and then 2 for 4 outside right in this zone. Now, look, these numbers aren't gaudy in terms of, how many yards he's accruing in these zones. But Dylan Rizk seems to be efficient. He's 70% passing on the season. And that's a great place to be if you're Dylan Rizk, to be north of that number. So he's providing efficiency at quarterback that they did not have in KJ Jefferson and Jacurri Brown and, the very small sample size of EJ Colson. Now, once you start to get inside the 0 to 10 range, this is where he is extremely efficient. 3 or 4 outside left here in the 0 to 10 range for 24 yards, but in the middle of the field, 14 for 16 for 120 yards, 8 for 9 outside right for 63 yards. If you're listening on podcast. And then in the middle of the field, behind the line of scrimmage, these little dump offs here, 11 of 12 for 66 yards. This is Dylan Rizk by the numbers. Now, I want to go back to 20-plus yards down the field. Being able to hit these passes is key in a lot of offenses. If you cannot hit downfield throws, defenses start to creep up. They start to play the run, and we all know it's no secret. If you are defending if you're defending UCF, stopping RJ Harvey is at the top of your list. So completing these throws means keeping the defense honest, keeping those safeties backed off, maybe backing those linebackers off a little bit, and making them guard the entire field if you're Dylan Rizk. So those numbers are super important, I think, in determining, look, can he be efficient enough to keep defenses honest and keep them off our star running back in RJ Harvey? Now, Harvey is averaging a ton of yards per carry here. He's north of 6.8 yards per carry on the season, and they're going to need him in these last 2 games if UCF is going to be able to beat West Virginia and beat Utah and get to a bowl game. They're 4-6 right now. And so balance on offense is going to be really important. You didn't get that in KJ Jefferson. You got a dynamic runner in Jacurri Brown, but just so many times he was just off with his arm, couldn't hit big throws when he needed. And when he got benched versus BYU, he was throwing interceptions over the middle of the field. And I think that's where Rizk excels. It's in the middle of the field, being accurate and protecting the football. Only one interception so far since he's taken over. Super important for him. Going back to these numbers here, one thing that stands out to me, again, is that 0 to 10 range. These are your dump offs. These are things where, you are making routine throws, but you need accuracy in these zones, because if you're not accurate in this zone, balls get picked off quite a bit. You throw a ball a little bit inside, the DB jumps the route, he's going to the house for a pick six, especially over the middle of the field. As a matter of fact, you see a lot of coaches, they refrain from letting their quarterbacks throw the ball over the middle of the field because they're worried that if that ball is not accurate, if it's thrown a little high, if it sails on the quarterback, it's going to be picked and you're going to have a disaster on your hands. So you see Gus Malzahn and Tim Harris Jr. showing a lot of confidence in Dylan Rizk, letting him throw the ball over the middle of the field. As a matter of fact, when you add up these numbers, he's got more attempts over the middle of the field than any other zone, and that's going from behind the line of scrimmage all the way to 20-plus yards. So they like to let this quarterback throw over the middle of the field. I think that shows a tremendous amount of trust in Dylan Rizk's arm. And he's a redshirt freshman, people. This is not a guy who's got a ton of experience. As a matter of fact, the decision to start him was a precarious one, I think, for Gus Malzahn and Tim Harris Jr. To go with him and to say, hey, look, we're going to give you the start with very little sample size and how you react in certain situations. He wasn't taking snaps with the ones all season. So it was guesswork. It was guesswork with Dylan Rizk. I think it's paid off. Now they've got to find a way to make it translate into wins. And hopefully they can come up with something here, over the last two games to continue to build on Rizk's abilities, because he may be your future at quarterback. Now, what will they do in the portal? Will they go after another big portal QB? We'll see. But look, at the end of the day, Dylan Rizk is who you have right now. And I think that he provides a tremendous amount of upside at the quarterback position. Now, what does West Virginia have in terms of the passing game at quarterback? Well, we'll talk about that after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Roy. UCF fans, listen up. You need to download the Roy app. You've heard us talk about Roy this season, how they're revolutionizing the NIL industry. Roy allows you, the fans, to have a say in who gets the NIL money. And here's what I absolutely love about Roy. You get your money back if that player transfers. Roy is helping us keep our team intact, and it's actually good for the game long term. Look. No matter who you support, no matter what player you support, NIL is here to stay. And you want to make sure that your player gets the recognition, that he gets the support he needs. You can do that by downloading the Roy app or go to joinroy.com today. Use code LOCKEDON. Every athlete from every team is there. No purchase is necessary. Void where prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for full terms. This segment of Locked On UCF is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. If you need tickets to games, Game Time has you covered. As a matter of fact, they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to games and to see your favorite team even easier. Download the Game Time app today, and here's how it works, right? Game Time Picks makes curation much easier so you can save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theaters. They've got all-in pricing, and toggling this feature shows you the total upfront, guys, so you have no surprise fees at checkout. I know I hate getting to checkout and finding that I got to pay $50 more now. I thought I was going to have to pay. You get panoramic view so you can see exactly where you're sitting, and they got the low price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of your purchase price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app today and create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE to get $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE to get $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Game time. Now we're going to talk about West Virginia's quarterback, Garrett Green, and what he is doing as far as passing depth is concerned. Again, courtesy of our friends at Pro Football Focus. Let's take a look at Garrett's charts here. Garrett Green, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we've got a much larger sample size for Garrett Green. So for our folks listening on pod, again, I'm going to say this out loud because you can't see what I'm talking about. But out plus 20 yards down the field, outside left, 1 of 10 for 44 yards. He's doing a lot of his work over the middle of the field and outside right over the middle, 8 of 17 for 249 yards. And deep outside right, 4 of 8 for 145 yards. Now, when you start to move in a little bit, I think this is where the numbers get interesting, and this is where we really start to talk about efficiency, because we expect 50% passing or lower when you're talking about 20-plus yards down the field. And that's considered pretty good. These are low percentage passes that you're throwing deep. You expect the percentages to go up as you come in. From 10 to 19 yards, he is 4 of 9 outside left. He is 27 of 44 in the middle from 10 to 19 yards for 488 yards on the season. This number isn't great. 10 of 9 from 10 to 19 yards outside right, 6 of 12, 50% passing for 103 yards. Now, we're going to come in again, and Garrett is 6 of 9 for 43 yards outside left from 0 to 10 yards. In the middle of the field, again, not great numbers here. You're just barely creeping over 50% at 26 of 44 for 222 yards from 0 to 10 yards. And then outside right, he has 13 of 21 for 106 yards from 0 to 10 yards. You see that efficiency start to go up. And as is with so many quarterbacks, nearly perfect behind the line of scrimmage. As a matter of fact, he's only incompleted 1 pass behind the line of scrimmage, 4-4 outside left, 19 of 20 for 104 yards behind the line of scrimmage in the middle of the field, and outside right behind the line of scrimmage, 1 of 1 for 6 yards. Garrett Green, ladies and gentlemen, look, you're talking about a guy who is a sub 60% passer here. And this is why I think this is really advantage UCF in this one. Garrett Green is more of a runner than anything, what we've seen by the numbers. As a matter of fact, his rushing numbers are pretty good on the season for a quarterback. So I expect West Virginia to lean into what he does well and sticking with the run. So far, he has 664 yards on the season, and he's averaging 7.8 yards per carry, and that's where his strength lies. But if you cannot hit the big pass down the field on this UCF defense, I think it's going to be a rough time for West Virginia in this one, because in a tight game coming down the stretch, are they going to be able to run the ball up the field if UCF is up and they need to score? We've seen teams be able to pass it down the field late on UCF, but their run defense has been fairly stingy, I think, and that's going to be interesting to see if they can contain Garrett Green on the ground, and what West Virginia, what contingency do they have if UCF is able to stop him with his arm and force him to run the ball? I think that's a precarious situation for West Virginia to be in this one. Going back to his numbers one more time so we can look at his efficiency here. Garrett Green is a 55% completion percentage guy. Yeah, at the end of the day, that's not great. He's got 11 touchdowns to 9 interceptions on the season. That ratio is terrible. So this is a guy that you can force to make some mistakes. He's not going to toss a ton of touchdowns on you, but he's going to make some mistakes. He's going to make some mistakes with his arm. This game is going to come down, I think, to UCF about whether you can turn those mistakes into points. Can UCF capitalize on Garrett Green's mistakes and turn those mistakes into points? So, look, he is what he is. You are who you are at this point in the season. And I think that West Virginia has not been a team that's been dynamic through the air, and the numbers bear that out in his completion percentage and his passing depth numbers. So are they going to be able to stop Garrett Green's arm, force him to run the ball, and then stop him on the ground too? I think they will be. So who truly has the advantage of quarterback? We'll talk about that a little bit more after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Mint Mobile. Look, I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy, no hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with a purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it really is easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedon college. There you'll see that right now all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including an unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and you can bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for only $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. So who really has the advantage at quarterback? Well, we took a look at the numbers. We've seen the completion percentage. We've got a much larger sample size for Garrett Green at West Virginia, a smaller sample size for Dylan Rizk. But I truly believe that UCF has the advantage at quarterback now that they've decided to take a risk on Dylan Rizk. He acquitted himself well at the end of the BYU game. I think he proved the faith that the coaches placed in him in every game after that, and that he could take care of the football, make big plays when needed. He's still a redshirt freshman, so he's got some things that he can clean up. But if this game comes down to who can make the big pass on the last drive, I like Dylan Rizk over Garrett Green, and I think it's advantage UCF Knights when it comes to quarterback on Saturday. Now, we all know there are a lot more factors that go in to who wins the game, but it'll be interesting to watch this one and see where this one pans out. Guys, that's it for another great edition of Locked On UCF. Thank you for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. For your second listen, go check out our friends at the Big 12 Podcast. Our friend Drake Toll leads the conversation in conference realignment news and holds no punches when it comes to every team in the Big 12. You can find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can find us right back here at Locked On UCF tomorrow.